welcome to Wistariahurst. We're going to give you a very short tour of the first and second floor. Currently we are in our Great Hall, and we call it the Great Hall because it's, well, pretty great, especially for socializing. The entrance to the museum is actually through our marble lobby here, and then you come right up the stairs. The marble lobby and the Great Hall were additions in the 1920s that Belle made to the house to razzle-dazzle her friends here. You'll see two portraits of them right behind you, both her and her sister. As well as the two main points of the family that we talk about, which are William and his second wife, Sarah. One of the featured pieces that is in our Great Hall is the staircase right here. It is a floating staircase. Belle had asked architects from Boston, New York City, and a bunch of other places if they were able to construct this for her because she wanted a very elegant welcome as she came to greet her friends for any type of socializing she would do. All those architects said no, but a contractor, Casper and Ranger Co. said yes, and now we have this beautiful staircase that is still here. The details on the staircase are iron wrought railings that slowly bloom peonies as you walk up the stairs, and is a guest favorite inside of the house.
Welcome to the library. This is where William Skinner and his family spent family time together and took care of correspondence. We have two portraits in this room. We have one of a young William Skinner, and across from him is his first wife, Nancy, who died when she was quite young at the age of 28. William married Sarah after Nancy had passed, and they went on to have 8 children, 5 of which lived to adulthood. We also talk about the Skinner Coffee House, which was a community space that some of the Skinner children had opened. So make sure to come back and learn more about that. Welcome to the gallery. This used to be 2 separate rooms. On the far side over here was the parlor. That's where William would spend time with his gentleman friends. And on this side would be the sewing room where Sarah Skinner would host some friends for sewing bees. It's now made into one room by their child, Belle Skinner, who took over as lady of the house. She used to keep a collection of musical instruments in here, but now we host gallery, art, and history exhibits.
Welcome to the leather room. We call this the leather room because there was authentic leather wallpaper on the wall. Originally, this was the primary bedroom of William Skinner, the patriarch of the family. Back in the day, in the Victorian era, your rooms were designed and decorated for its function, and since you were only supposed to be in your bedroom when you were sleeping, there wasn't much decoration that was done. So once he had passed away, actually probably right where I'm standing, Belle and her brothers came in and decided that they wanted this to be an office study space. So we're not quite sure why she wanted leather wallpaper, but she spent about $3,000 in that day's money in order to outfit all of these walls. In addition to that, this area that was the Great Hall that is behind this room would have been the backyard. So these windows would have originally had a view outdoors. One of the reasons that she did this is, well, I don't know. She's always kind of had a interesting eye of things, so we're not sure why she mirrored the windows, but it is an interesting point of interest for a guest.
This is the dining room. This is where the family would take their meals. Over here and behind me is the butler's pantry, where the finishing touches on dishes would be made. Above the mantle here is a portrait of Belle Skinner. As we had said in previous rooms, Belle took over as lady of the house and was responsible for many of the renovations.
Welcome to the breakfast room. It is also known as the conservatory, but lovingly staff calls it the breakfast room. The family would often eat breakfast inside of this room, and they had, just like we do, a ton of plants in order to kind of, bring some life into it. Back in the day, there also would have been animals such as birds, large trees inside of here, and this room was built as a buffer between the kitchen and dining room and the music room. Belle Skinner was quite terrified of fire back in her day, and she had a large musical instrument collection that was housed inside of the music room. So in this room, you will find cork floors. Cork floors are flame retardant, so they will slow any flames that come in. And hopefully that'll give the Holyoke Fire Department enough time to get here back in the day before anything would burn inside the music room. We have this beautiful peacock window right behind me. We are unsure who made it. Rumor is it's Tiffany & Co. Because they did make a partition for Belle's New York City apartment. But we do not have a receipt, and neither does Tiffany. But this is one of the big pieces that we always like to spotlight and guests always kind of remember us for.
This is the music room. As you could probably tell by the acoustics, this is where lots of musical performances would occur. Belle had a collection of musical instruments, as we had briefly stated, and her collection grew so large that eventually a room this size was necessary. Above here, we have a musician's balcony where musicians used to play. Today, when we host performances here, they usually just use the stage. Back in the day, the Skinners would host gatherings for family and friends, and today we still have events and gatherings here as well. We're actually set up right now for a Sunday Fun Day event, but we've also hosted weddings, concerts, all sorts of events for the community.
Welcome to the tenement room. It is our most newly reprogrammed room. Here at Wistariahurst, we like to talk about every person or every class that is attached or known to the Skinners, especially their mills. So this house, the museum, is built very opulently because the Skinners were very wealthy. But what was that wealth built off of? What was the work that went into it? This room is designed to look like a mill family's home back in the day, just to show you the difference between wealthy families versus poverty level families. So in here, you would have probably fit at least a husband and a wife. Your mother-in-law was probably living with you, and you probably also had a gaggle of kids. So you'd be all scrambled in to fit in this area. There was no central heat, there was no central air, and there's no central plumbing. So most families had to share one chamber pot to themselves and just empty it out of their back window at the end. In 1875, there was a survey done across the United States, Boston, Chicago, New York, all these places, including Holyoke, of industrial sites and the tenement style living. And Holyoke was rated the worst in the country for tenement living. We have no pictures of the inside of tenement living. We only have pictures of the outside just because of those conditions were that serious.
Welcome to Stuart's bedroom. This room was designed for Stuart, who was a grandchild of William Skinner. His mother was Catherine Skinner, and like all the other Skinner descendants, Stuart was required to get educated. When he was at university, he met a woman, Barbara, and they fell in love. But at the time, the university had a rule where you could not be married and also be pursuing education there. And so he had to drop out, which made his mother, Catherine, very upset. But Belle Skinner, his aunt, invited him to come live at Wistariahurst with her, and she constructed this room for Stuart and Barbara to live in together. Attached to this room is a bathroom and nursery, where they would take care of their child that they would eventually have. And the bathroom I always like to point out, because after seeing the living conditions in the tenement room, it really speaks to the difference between the wealthy and the normal people. In the bathroom that Stuart had, there's a separate shower and tub, they had running water, there was a shower with 9 shower heads, just very opulent and fortunate.
Welcome to the servants' workroom. So in here we discuss servants that worked around Wistariahurst, or the Skinner Mansion as it was known back in the day. The Skinner family was known for making pretty good relationships with their servants, although some had a little bit of contention with their bosses. We talk about Huldah Clem. She's a former nurse. She worked here for 46 years. The head housekeeper, Hattie Riley, also worked here for about 46 years. And so there are a lot of long-term servants that worked here. We had a servant named Tony Bosky. He was the head gardener. He created a victory garden in World War II to help with produce, as well as chauffeurs, the Brakeys. They were a father-son duo. They lived right across the street on Pine Street, and essentially George was a 24/7 Uber driver because they installed a landline directly to his house. Back in the day, you would only have one day off if you worked in the Skinner house. Typically, you'd be working anywhere from 5 a.m. until anywhere to 11 p.m. at night. And you most likely shared a bedroom with at least 1 to 2 other people. Unless you were the head housekeeper, then you got a small room on your own with its own sink, as a sign of a benefit that you got for being head of the household.
Welcome to the Silk Room. Here is where we talk about William Skinner's Silk Empire. In the case out here, one side we have some examples of Skinner silk products, anything from fabrics to shoes, parachutes, boxing trunks, all sorts of things. And then on the other side of the case, we have some remnants such as spools and pieces of thread from the Mill River flood in 1874. William Skinner's original mill was in the Haydenville area, but a dam broke and flooded the entire town. The mill was destroyed, lives were lost, and on one side of the case we have some photos, some pieces that were uncovered in that flood.
Welcome to Belle's bedroom. We call it Belle's bedroom because this was the lady of the house's bedroom, which eventually became Belle once both of her parents passed away. But this was originally the bedroom of her mother, Sarah. Sarah most likely gave birth inside these rooms while she lived here because most wealthy families did not go to hospitals to have their children. So we're probably standing in the space where she had most of her children. But after she had passed away, Belle took up residence inside of this room. It is very notable because Belle loved her gardens, so she would often be known to be kind of telling people what to do outside of the windows and just telling them where they should put things, what she would prefer, giving that old Belle Skinner eye and palette and such. Additionally, in this room you can see what our museum is named after, which are wisteria vines. In the 1880s, Belle Skinner's mom decided that she wanted to add wisteria vines around the house. It provided plenty of shade and also privacy for anyone who was floating around the Skinner mansion at the time, and they are still there to this day. There were wisteria vines that were added in the 1920s to the music room addition, but the ones you see on the garden side of the house are all from the 1880s, and they are still living and they are still thriving.
Our final stop on our mini tour today will be the study. This study overlooks the Pine Street side of the house. And in this room, we like to talk about a particular companion to the family. So many of the family members had personal companions who would assist them in their day-to-day lives and handling correspondence and sort of secretary type work. This particular companion was named Prudence Ladog. She was introduced to Belle in France when Belle was over there doing some philanthropy work. During most of her life, she would travel quite a bit from France to Holyoke to New York, and after connecting with Prudence, they continued traveling together, and Prudence assisted her throughout the rest of her life.
After Belle's passing in the 1920s, the house was used kind of as a family vacation area for the Skinner families, specifically the Skinner siblings. Kitty, Catherine Skinner Kilbourne, eventually after her husband had passed away, she decided to move back home, and she lived here for about 10 years before in 1959 she decided to give the house to the city. She gave it to the city for free for cultural and educational purposes, and we honor that legacy that she wanted her family home to be about by doing a lot of our programming for free and open to the public. We do have ticketed events such as guided house tours once a month. We do special character tours, and we do lots of fun stuff around the holidays. But you can visit us for free for our Sensory Friendly Sunday Fun Days, for any open gallery hours that we do. We do a ton of stuff. We do exhibits, we do history lectures, we do sensory events for families, we do vendor markets. We do it all, almost everything that you can think of here. So we would love if you guys came back, check out our website or Eventbrite and our social medias to see what we're up to.